So, everyone, welcome to the Creative Industries Podcast. I'm excited because I've got Suzanna here from Daltons Music Venue in Brighton. We're recording live in Brighton. With me, I've got a whole bunch of students. I've got Bob. How you doing, Bob? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
We've got Alfie. How you doing, Alfie?
G'day. I'm doing absolutely fantastic.
Good. We got Miles. How you doing, Miles?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm doing very good, thanks.
We got Lewis as well. How you doing, Lewis?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
And we got Owen joined on the Zoom. How you doing, Owen?
I'm good, thank you, David.
Thanks for tuning in. So we got Suzanna as well. How you doing?
Hi there, I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
Thanks so much for giving up your time to come in and chat to us about music and sound engineering and working at a music venue and all that. It's just like, that's our bread and butter here. We love that kind of stuff, don't we, guys? Yeah.
Definitely.
It's the best. It's the best. So usually at the start of the podcast, I think what a nice thing for people to find out about is, well, you know, we've been working at Brighton at Daltons Music Venue. It's been going from around about the end of 2023.
Yeah, that's right. So previously, Daltons was existing, doing some stuff, but it was more small-scale theatre, comedy, some like theatre screenings or movie screenings. But the events management changed over at the end of 2023, and we started running live music full-time, and it's been incredible since then. It's really taken off.
Oh, so good. And you were saying even when we were making a cup of tea there, how pretty much fully booked almost every day of the week for the next wee while, yeah?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So our booking availability is actually quite limited at the moment. We have, of course, have events cancellations if they do come up just due to maybe it's injury, maybe it's unavailability or something last minute. So we'll have stuff popping up here and there. But for the most part, especially weekends, we're fully booked until the end of summer now.
That's amazing. And it has a place in my heart because it was the first place in Brighton my band ever played too. So I'm like, woohoo. So it's a special place. And that's one reason when I was looking for a podcast guest, like, we got to get Daltons in. Come on. Like, it has to be done. So what we normally ask our guests to start with is most of our students are between the age of about 16 to 25 years old. And if you rewind the clock to then, what was it like for you in education then? Was that the time you were getting into music, or did you find it before or after then? What was it like for you then?
So I played instruments from quite a young age. I had family that were quite keen for me to try and get involved with some of that, but I was terrible at practicing. I tried piano and I never really fell in with that. I always wanted to learn rock guitar. I tried a bit of classical guitar and never really got on with that. But I had undiagnosed ADHD, so practicing was really, really difficult for me. I essentially did lessons, then just didn't play my instrument between then. But around the age of 16, 17, I started going to pub gigs in my local town, and I downloaded my first DAW, which was, at the time, it was Linux Multimedia Studio. It's not really like, it's not really a full-scale proper DAW, but it was free, it was online, it was the first thing that I found. And I started getting more into, it was the bass music scene back then was quite big in the UK. It was around sort of 2011 to 2013. And there was a website called plug.dj where you could jump on and it was like a chat room with friends and you could queue up different videos, listen to different bits of music. And I started getting involved with SoundCloud communities and music production communities, learning more about the craft and the skill. And yeah, ever since then, I've just been plugging away as a hobbyist until a couple of years ago.
Amazing. So cool. So from instruments to production and then kind of onto live sound, which we'll come to in a bit for sure.
I mean, there's a big reason for that. So I'm not afraid to say this. A lot of people might approach, you know, there's the odd jaded musician that might come through and be like, oh, sound engineers are all failed musicians. They couldn't make it big on stage. Now, I don't have much creativity. I might bash out 3 songs a year. And I'm fine with that. But if somebody else gives me a framework, gives me that product, I can do production, I can do mixing, mastering, polishing, any of that stuff. I love working with the raw materials other people give me. So engineering is really like the ideal place that I actually want to be. So yeah, I'm really lucky there.
That's a really good point, because sometimes you get that and it's probably due to like a trope that like the moody sound engineer, which I've actually discovered as went about, happens less and less and less. It's sort of like almost slightly fake thing in the music industry. And I think almost sometimes musicians have their guards up because of that, if that makes sense.
It only takes one person that you encounter that's a little bit rough around the edges, shall we say, for you to be worried about, you know, ruffling feathers elsewhere. And like, if I ask for something, is somebody going to be frustrated with me? But especially as younger generations take over those positions, I'm finding that more and more we're all in it because we love music, especially in the grassroots scene. We just want to have a good time.
Yeah. And speaking of the grassroots scene, we were talking about off air just before we came on about how where you grew up was quite rural and you had a bit of a DIY community there. I kind of wanted to find out a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I started going to pub gigs. There was a little pub in town that would let under 16s in for the music and, keep a close eye on them to make sure that they didn't try and buy alcohol from the bar. But
Yeah.
it was the kind of situation where there was maybe one or two PA speakers that people would hire in just for vocals, and it was just amps and like acoustic drums and stuff. And then other than that, people might take their kit all around to somebody else's house, maybe like a farm or something that like a friend's family owned, and they'd set up in a barn or something like that and run little shows. There were people in the same year as me at school who were starting to build their own speaker cabinets and sound systems, because the area that I grew up in, very rural, also very under-resourced. So when you look at buying a brand new PA system, that was so out of reach for people. It was much more conducive to start getting into the real nitty-gritty and try and find out, like, oh, we want to make a DJ sound system, we want really powerful subwoofers, what do we actually want out of this, how are we going to build it? There are some people that built like a mini sound system in a suitcase they could just take around with the speaker drivers like facing out the top of it.
So cool, like when you think about it. And it's kind of thing that probably the skills they learned along the way, it's basically electrical engineering a little bit, and assembly and things like that, which 100%. Is like really cool to learn that through your passion of music. And although I don't know, they might not be doing that now, they might be using those skills in a different way, but it's really cool how self-sufficiency and reliance can like really take you forward for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really why I love the grassroots scene so much. Now I'm in Brighton. I've been here since 2016. And I used to visit family as I was growing up, and I love this little spot by the sea where you can just get, down to the seafront, out to the countryside so easily. But with the grassroots scene here, everybody just wants to promote themselves more. Everybody wants to be able to make their scene a little bit more involved, pull in new people from elsewhere, make it a really open door, so there aren't the same barriers to entry that we might have experienced, like a decade or a decade and a half ago, which at the time were, kind of significant. People didn't have the same knowledge of doors, perhaps. There wasn't the same availability as free products. Like, for example, Reaper wasn't a thing when I was looking into getting into music production, so I either had to pay or I had to pirate.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like through kind of the ages like 16, 25, you were sort of finding your way, discovering different skills.
100%.
Sounds like you found a community, which was really good. And I guess that can't be undervalued either.
The community was really lovely back there. When I moved down to Brighton, however, it was because in that rural area, there were less career opportunities. And it's funny, my career path actually took quite a tangent at that point. I ended up going into game development, and I was esports talent. So I was doing video game commentary, where some of the skills which I picked up from music production, all of a sudden I was using for live broadcast. I was using for audio post-production when I was doing voiceover for like a top 5 plays series. I was sort of like running a little broadcast studio at the office, and I was going around the world occasionally to go and be on stage talent, which was crazy.
That's really cool. Like, that is something that I think we should explore a little bit, if that's cool for you.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
there's plenty of students at Superjam who are interested in like esports and gaming in general, and maybe how to make a career of use their creativity to make a career of it.
Yeah,
that way.
100%.
And then I think we'll chat about that a little bit before we go bring it back to the music, if that's cool. So did you say that was of EA Games?
No, so it was esports just with competitive gaming as a whole. It was for a company called Hi-Res Studios, and the game that I was involved in was Paladins. I'm actually wearing the little beanie with the mobile game thing
cool.
for the time being. And I got into that. I was a big fan of Smite back in the day. I went out to... saved up a bunch of money from a little receptionist job back in Wales, and I went out to Atlanta in Georgia for the Smite World Championships in 2016, and I watched everything going on, and I saw the people up on the stage, and I was like, that looks like fun. I want to do that.
Cool.
And I started getting involved. Paladins was a game that was just coming out into open beta in 2016, 2017, I think it was actually, sorry. And people started running community tournaments. I started getting involved. I sent a little application for like a commentary thing, and I started streaming, and really I was involved with building that scene from the ground up and working with all of the amazing people that helped make that, a really enjoyable space to be. And there's no better substitute than just kind of starting to get involved there.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Especially when something's just taken off. I think it sounds like that's a key thing in two ways with the gaming and with Daltons, because Daltons, like you said, had just changed the sort
Yeah.
of ownership and bookers who were booking more acts and more variety.
Well,
And it
there's
sounds
another
like you got
story
in there
there.
at the right time, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually started working with Dalton's back when it was doing like one mic comedy productions back in July of 2023. A friend of mine recommended me for that place. She knew that I was interested in a career change because the gaming industry, it's a wonderful place to be. When you are very personally invested in the product, it becomes quite hard to separate work from leisure, and you often take your work home with you. So I ended up quite burnt out after that, and I wanted a real change of pace. And yeah, a friend of mine recommended me for Dalton's. Said that like, hey, you've got all this audio post-production experience. I know you're interested in live sound, and I had come and shouted her work a few times. Shout out to Phoebe Bentham. Does a bunch of live sound at Brighton Electric, and there's another studio. I've completely forgotten
Oh,
the
we
name.
had Jimmy from Brighton Electric in the podcast one time.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah, that was
no,
cool. Yeah, yeah.
fantastic space.
Yeah.
But this was about the easiest thing that I could have gotten started with, where I had a little analog mixing desk and one microphone per show, maybe a backup if necessary, and it was just a case of like ride the mic levels, try and avoid people giving too much feedback if they happen to walk in front of the PA. And because I was established at that place, when it changed over to music, they were generous enough to take me along for the ride.
Cool. That is so awesome. So I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening. Just kind of just taking up as many opportunities as you can, and then like especially if projects are just starting out, even if you have to work for free a little bit or do a bit of shadowing to start with, it can be such a good way of getting like an in.
Shadowing is definitely a really important way to get in. And back when I started off at Dalton's, the former lead engineer there was a great mentor for filling in the gaps that I was missing for live sound, because I developed a lot of skills and techniques for mixing in the box and doing things for post-production. But when you're in a live environment, I mean, one of the first things that you have to learn is that what you're doing in small venues is you're doing sound reinforcement. You're not in a space where everything that you hear is coming from the PA, so you're always mixing in parallel. You're always working with the stage volume. And as a result, how you approach things has to change quite radically. The way that you might gain stage things, the way that you might approach even the stuff like bus compression to allow all of your sounds to gel together. So having a mentor there was really important. And that's also why I got incredibly lucky, and I can't deny that I was taken along with Dalton's and given an opportunity where my skills could be nurtured and grown, and I was allowed room to learn and make the odd mistake and stuff with guidance there. So important that we continue that philosophy and that we continue that principle to keep the door open for another generation to keep climbing up that ladder and get into these positions as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one thing in regards to switching it back to the more kind of DAW and studio production, you mentioned a little bit about bassline kind of music already, a little bit.
Yeah,
Was that a certain kind of bassline music? Because I know Owen, who's on the Zoom call. Owen, hope you're still there.
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, I know Owen's actually blind, but he's learning to use Logic to produce music. And I know he DJs already, and Owen, he's doing amazing. But yeah, Owen, I know you love your bass line and your
Love
music
bass
production.
line.
So I wonder if you had any questions for Suzanna on this sort of production side of things.
I don't know about production stuff, but when you're talking about bass line, Suzanna, are you meaning people like Jamie Duggan, DJ Q, that stuff?
No, so when I talk about like the bass music scene in the UK back in the early 2010s, it was the sort of like James Blake era of dubstep. It was all of the like crystal dub and house and garage scene picking up. And like when Future Garage was starting to come a bit more into the mainstream, stuff like that. If you've heard of artists like Koan Sound and Sorrow and Acer, there was a bunch of people that shared a house in Bristol, and they produced some of the most phenomenal bass music that I think I've still ever heard from that era. And with people who are working with them and odd musicians joining in these plug DJ sessions, it was a really interesting window into how they made their work.
Yeah. I know with the dubstep you got like Flux Pavilion, Dr. P, Scream obviously used to do it back in the day, Benga.
Yeah, and there's I mean, dubstep as a whole topic that you can have a massive conversation about with the evolution of it, because the way that it started, especially in the UK, is so radically different to how most people perceive the genre now. There was a big Americanization that came over in a wave with artists like you just mentioned, but also I think the advent of like Skrillex and Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites being like that one song that people heard that kind of got them into the genre. And that really flipped the scene on its head. So all of a sudden, everything was big and loud and impressive rather than it being sort of like refined, making use of empty space.
Yeah, and I also feel that Nero you could put Nero in the category of Skrillex as well, and Knife Party.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, who have done a lot of stuff with. I remember they did a track with Rob Swire from Pendulum.
Nice. And thanks for that, Owen. And yeah, I'm glad that you guys are sharing some of those influences. I know with Bob and Alfie, you guys are both musicians, have a band as well.
Yes, we're in a band called The Will.
Feel free to plug the band. Yeah, that's fine. The Will. So I know you guys have done a few gigs for Super Jam and
Hold
stuff.
on, The Will. Are you playing at Daltons at some point in the future? Did I see something on the calendar
cool
about
is
that
this?
pop up?
Why, yes, we are.
Hey!
I'm gonna have to put myself down for that event then.
Exclusive dub plate there.
Yeah. So, guys, maybe you should share a little bit about what your band's like, or who your inspirations are, or roughly what genre or mix of genres.
Our band is we've got 4 members. We got I'm the drummer, Alfie is the bassist, our singer and guitarist are unfortunately not here today, but we kind of, I don't know what type of music we make. We kind of make a mixture of sort of different stuff.
Like a mix of genres.
Indie rock, I would say, mostly. Pop.
Cool.
Yeah, very experimental. I think you're right, Lewis.
Country.
So how did you guys link up with Daltons then? How did that concert come about?
Actually, yeah, you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you know the RZA's bassist.
Yeah,
Casey? She actually has contact with someone at Daltons.
Cool.
And then I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, "Oh, maybe you should get us a gig there." Lol. and then yeah,
It shows you how these things happen. And yeah, Casey is in a band called the RZA's, based at Super Jam. I think they've maybe played there before previously. But I know you have a lot of bands come through the
I have
doors.
so many bands coming through. It is difficult to
coming in a
remember them.
day.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Was it 11 in one day? Just the other day, you said?
Yeah, Saturday we had
11 bands in a day.
11 for an event called Friend Fest. Absolutely fantastic. But yeah, that was a really busy one.
I think as the main sound engineer, that must be quite a tiring but fun day, I'm guessing.
It certainly is. Now, normally, if we're having an all-dayer event like that, I'll schedule a couple of engineers in. We'll make sure that we're synced up on how we're, running things to make sure there's a seamless changeover. But we'll split the load just to make sure that people can get the breaks that they need. But I really like the music that was going on, and it was a nice opportunity for me to like sit there and really enjoy a show. Also, for a day like FriendFest, it was a lot of pop punk and emo and punk bands.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they're not the most technically complex setups. You sort of dial in drums at the beginning of the day, and then maybe somebody's changing the guitar amp, but mostly it's just, can I hear the vocals? Cool. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Oh, that's really good, actually. Yeah, cool. So, an all dayer like that just sounds really exciting, really exciting. So, we've kind of covered a lot of ground in the interview so far. So thanks so much for sharing. I think this is all valuable advice. And also just, it's so nice to, I think for maybe anyone who's listening who's at college, to sort of almost break the college bubble and start to see paths of how you might go to reach venues or kind of to get experience and eventually get work.
Well, actually,
out of it.
on that, we do work a little bit with some of the local music colleges in Brighton, and we're always open to working with more, especially as we head towards the summer. We have the opportunity to run matinee shows. Obviously, we're a live music venue, and unfortunately, most live music venues that are grassroots venues in the UK are in some way or another pubs or bars. They rely on the sale of alcohol to keep themselves afloat, and live music is something that we do because we love it, but it doesn't keep us afloat. As a result, we have a 10 p.m. curfew for under 16s, but when we're running matinee shows, we can work with groups like Brighton Youth Centre, we can work with the local music colleges, whether that's BIM or Waterbear, to be able to allow people to host like coursework gigs or something like that as well. And we can make sure that we're always giving people that kind of that slot so they can get onto a stage, they can work with an external engineer they might be unfamiliar with. and they can get a taste of what it's like. Even just like having bright lights in your face and getting used to playing with an audience in front of you rather than like a few people in a practice room is a very different experience. Really valuable.
Yeah, it really is, definitely. And I think that's something, we'll keep in touch with and really hope to explore.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
we'd love to
you
have
guys are
you.
going to play there soon anyway, but maybe some of the other future Super Jam students. I know Lewis is more into the DJing side of things. Is that something that comes up more at Daltons, or does Daltons more focus on the live side of things at the moment?
So it's a little tricky with our license restrictions. We aren't allowed to have DJ-led performances there.
Okay.
However, when we have a longer event, such as there's a local promoter called Garageland that does some big punk shows, and now we've got a license extension for up to 3 a.m. on a Friday and a Saturday. What we'll have is we'll have a bunch of bands, and then somebody will be spinning old punk records afterwards, and we're able to like transition it through onto there. So provided that the focus of the overall show isn't solely DJs, or if it's DJs accompanying a performer, say you've got an MC, or say you've got somebody who's using a DJ for like live backing tracks and a bit of mixing and stuff, but the focus is on the artist or a vocalist, then we can get all of that stuff going as well.
That's really cool. Yeah, and it is interesting hearing about how different venues have different licenses, because even that background music business knowledge, some of our listeners, and even for me, sometimes you always learn new things about, okay, that's why they do it that way. For example, one of the businesses in Edinburgh called Sneaky Pete's, who are an amazing music venue. I think one reason they've managed to sustain themselves for, it's all probably about 12 years now, is they actually must have a special license that allows them to be a live music venue, and then an hour changeover between 10 and 11, and then from 11 till 3 they're a nightclub, and I guess that's how they can generate enough or revenue to survive.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the split through a lot of these things. On that side of music business, though, I mean, coming into this, again, from doing no live audio outside of like broadcasts where it was all online and you don't have to worry about the licensing restrictions there beyond, should I mention the streaming service? What do my sponsors want me to say about their products? And then coming into things like venue curfews, noise limit restrictions, performance availabilities, even down to how many live performances we need to run a week to be able to keep our license. We have a certain minimum amount that we have to be running through. Otherwise, we're falling under the license conditions, which is also why we've got so much stuff going on. But fortunately, we're a beachfront venue. In the summer, we've got so much foot traffic there anyway, just from the tourist crowd coming through, that we love to be able to have, even if it's just like an acoustic guitarist in the doors or something, have a way to like capture people, bring them in, introduce them to the venue, and share a little bit of what we love with them.
Yeah. Is there anything you're looking forward to in the next year? Talking about performances, whilst we're on the topic, looking forward to this year coming up that you've got. So you mentioned you had the thing that was at Friends Fest at the weekend, and then anything like that coming up that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few real slam dunk sessions coming up. The ones that really come to mind, the first all-day event that I did at Daltons was called Doom by the Sea, and we run a couple of these like twice a year, whether it's like spring and autumn or so. We'll have an all-day doom metal event.
Oh, Doom by the Sea.
Fantastic. I mean, it's the classic crowd of like rain or shine. They'll come down because it's that people are really invested in the music. And that's something that our creative manager, Emmeline, organized because she absolutely adores that music and has contact with a lot of bands. We've also got going on through March and I think into April. I'm not sure if into May. I haven't looked that far ahead in the calendar yet.
Yeah.
We've got Metal to the Masses running on. So you might be familiar with this, but Bloodstock has a play-in competition to earn a spot to play the festival.
Cool.
And last year there was a Brighton band that won and was able to go there. So we've got the heats going on at Daltons across, it's every Tuesday across the next couple of months and stuff. I'm really looking forward to that because it's a great showcase of the local talent that's gunning for that opportunity to be able to elevate themselves to a big stage and push their music outside of the local bubble that it's sometimes really hard to break out of.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds awesome. Like, honestly, with the Doom Metal Festival, you can imagine rain or shine, like you said, they can come out. It sounds absolutely magic. So, looking forward, where do you see the future of Daltons going a bit further forward? How would you, just in a dream scenario or kind of what you'd love to see develop with it? Obviously, it's magic already, but anything you'd love to see it develop in different ways?
Oh, it's tricky because really we're always working with the physical limitations of the venue. We've got quite a low ceiling, so we've got it's an old CCTV camera that's pointing at the stage, and it is full color, but it's on a little bit of latency, like 0.5 seconds. But we've got some screens around the venue, whether that's in the live room or in the games room behind the live room, so people can see what's going on and still get involved in there. I'd love to see that upgraded. I'd love to see us be able to do like the odd live broadcast or something.
Yeah.
I'd love to see us making use of the decking space that we have outside for, some smaller shows in the summer, whether that's like a small full band or whether that's just like an acoustic performer, singer-songwriter, or even we've had DJs out there previously. When
Sunset sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. I can imagine that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just
No,
thinking
not at
how
all.
cool would that be? Like, yeah, it's awesome.
we had this is embarrassing. I'm gonna completely forget his name, but Fatboy Slim's son played a session down there a while ago out in the
cool.
seafront, and it's the kind of thing where you're able to hire in from a local gear hire, like a beefy PA system that will function well outside. And will be like IPS rated for the waterproofing and set things up there. But if we're able to get a little shelter built up there, put a little roof on there, we can.
Oh yeah, like a little tiki hut kind of thing. Looks kind of made of the wood or whatever design. Yeah. I was thinking dead Hawaiian inspired or something.
Besides that, I mean, we're working with the constraints of an old building on Madeira Drive. So it's sort of like everything is Victorian era dimensions. And unfortunately, the low ceiling does mean that we're always going to have those slight accessibility problems. But provided that we can get the video in and get screens around the venue, I mean, as long as the sound's good and as long as people can see what they want to come down for, then, that's all I can ask for.
I was going to ask your opinion, Suzanna, and the guys as well. So we mentioned like the camera and live streaming, and it's something over the last 10 years has really developed. Everyone's well into and aware of live streaming now. It's not a new thing at all. But do you think and I suppose nothing's ever like binary or black and white kind of answer. There's no yes or no answer. But I think it'd be cool to discuss. Like, do you think so imagine your concert coming up, guys, at Daltons, and it's going to be live streamed on YouTube. Anyone can tune into it. And that's obviously going to benefit people who maybe are ill or have access issues or can't or maybe they don't live in Brighton and can't make it. But do you think it would mean some people who might have went to the gig might just think, oh, I'm just going to watch it on YouTube instead? I wonder what everyone's thoughts on this. I'll maybe ask you guys first.
Well, I think my mum wanted to come to the gig, but she couldn't. So live streaming will help with that.
Cool, yeah.
Sure.
So it does benefit in some ways.
Benefits in a lot of ways. I think it's probably a lot to do with people who actually just can't make it,
Like genuinely can't. I think you're right, actually, yeah. Yeah, what do you think, Suzanna?
Well, there are ways we can work around that potentially. If you're doing a live stream event, first and foremost, we'd want to make sure that it's specifically for ones where either we're going to sell out a local capacity or it's for an accessibility reason. We do a lot of comedy and cabaret, for example, at Daltons as well. There's Brighton's Next Drag Monarch, which is going on right now, and they're live streaming that from a phone over Instagram at the moment. But if we're able to put together a bit more of like a professional polished production for them, it'll make that a bit more accessible to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to make it down. And when we've got a seated audience in the venue, we're at a bit of a lower capacity anyway. We do currently, I run a little archive YouTube channel. It's a DIY thing. I do it entirely for free just because I love the local scene and want to have a bit of a sense of permanence. But with that, I'll record certain shows with full artist permissions. They get access to the audio, the video, and everything that I produce. And then, up to like a month after their show, we might release that set onto YouTube. So there's enough of a time buffer there. When it comes to live things, we could look at using like a ticketed live streaming platform. But for me, I think I'd prefer to only do live streaming is a complicated one because it requires like a lot of like a different tech setup. But if we're going to do that, I would prefer it to be for like, a free entry show or something, or like a really big thing in the summer that we know we're going to hit capacity for and people might just not be able to make it down for.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that's really interesting to think all those considerations. And like Bob said, for people who genuinely can't make it, it's a great thing as well. And yeah, I think it makes...
I feel like it'll make people lazier, not wanting to leave the house.
Do you think that might... I think that's the threat. If you live stream every gig, like you said,
exactly.
if you were to, it could mean less people come to the actual gig itself. It's possible.
Lazier and not want to leave the house.
Also, in the middle of winter, we've got to be very, very aware of the fact, in the middle of winter, it's storming. You've got to really want to see a show to come down to the seafront where you're going to get battered by the winds and the rain. So for stuff like that, it really is just like niche opportunities
Yeah.
where it's like a really big thing, but
Cherry pick the right moments.
post archiving is more the way that I like to look at it, just because we can then have the also I get to like mix things down in post and make it
Yeah.
perfect, as opposed to like relying on a live mix.
And
where-
like you said, this sort of permanence of it, like because like when I was moved to Glasgow, when I was kind of in my early 20s, there was a massive like noise music scene, and someone had the idea to bring just a compact camera along on a tripod and film loads of them, and some of them were in pop-up locations, and I'm like, they're still on YouTube now. I'm like, yes, like I was there. So it's really, I
Exactly.
think it's like you'd be surprised how maybe even 10, 15 years from now, someone might be trying to find that on YouTube. So I think it's great what you're doing with that.
And
I
that's-
think, yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm trying to do, right? Like, I've got a couple of little action cameras. They're like GoPros that I'm using for it. The main thing I'm doing is the only difference between this and somebody having an old VHS camcorder, you know, like a couple of decades ago, is that I'm able to produce higher quality audio so people can get a really nice listening experience as well. But at the end of the day, it's still DIY. If it's a bit rough around the edges, that's okay.
Yeah, and it's great you give the recordings and that to the band as well, because it's the kind of thing that they can use promo. Well, in 2025, it's 2025, right? Yeah. When we're recording this, anyway, yeah. Online promotions are huge cycle bands have to go through every week, every month. So having content they can clip up and post on their
Absolutely.
socials
It's
is really
all about
important.
short
Yeah.
video now, isn't it? Everybody's like, it's TikTok, Instagram Reels, little snippets that people can catch when they're scrolling through.
Yeah.
And if you're able to catch those highlight moments, whether that's, you know, like it's a stage dive or someone crowd surfing, which for safety reasons, I got to say, I wouldn't advise crowd surfing in Daltons, because it's kind of like
Listen up, guys.
It's kind of like getting
Damn, we
posted through a letterbox because you're so close to the ceiling.
We was planning to do that as well.
I mean, maybe, you know what? Bring a helmet and it'll be okay. There are a couple of low
Safety
beams.
check, risk assessment passed.
But yeah, it's getting those.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
What's that, Miles? Yeah, it's safety kit.
Absolutely. No, provided that we have the like we get the right camera angles and stuff, you can catch some amazing moments. So we had like a really big hardcore show on New Year's Eve this past year.
Yeah.
And I just gave the camera to a couple of people in the crowd, and I was like, "Hey, take some, you know, get some pit footage. Let's get some stuff that's up close and personal." And it's fantastic
That's
promo.
so cool. That is so cool. And it's fun that you're combining those skills of like your video with audio, although audio is the main side. I think that's a good lesson for anyone listening as well. Like, you know, especially when you guys are at college, you guys are learning lots of different things. You'll know what your favorite interests are, but you're trying a lot of new things too. And sometimes you'll be surprised how that thing you learned maybe like 12 months ago comes back in. You're like, oh, I can use that in this. So I think that's a really good real life example of that as well.
You can never undervalue the skills that you pick up. And it's one of the really fascinating things that for small music venues, I'm very attached to Daltons as a place. And there are quite a lot of small music venues in Brighton. We're really lucky to have such a diverse selection of places. The one unique selling point that Daltons has that's really important for us is that we're a fully accessible venue, because we
Yes.
are one floor. We've got ramp access throughout. There's
Really good.
no step access to anywhere. We are in the process of looking for the right portable ramp for our low stage as well, which is only 12 centimeters or so high, just to make sure that we've got full no step access throughout the venue. But if there are other things that we can do, if I can bring my knowledge from esports broadcast to be able to get like some video feeds up in there, if we can do things like that YouTube channel, whether or if we can do things with social media, then it's all ways to not just help set us apart from, I don't want to say set us apart from the competition, because at the end of the day, we're all in grassroots music because we love it, but just to offer a slightly different experience in the same way that, you know, like a venue like the Folklore Rooms is so perfect for those like slightly more intimate seated gigs where you're in a really pretty environment and you just want to have like a bit more of a relaxing time.
Absolutely. And we're getting to near the end of our podcast, guys. So I thought if anyone we got Owen on the Zoom or anyone in the room, if you guys have any questions you want to ask before I get to my last two ones, or you guys want a bit of time to have a think before we go to the questions. Owen, do you have any questions so far?
So so obviously you were saying about like having the DJs out doing like in the summer or what have you. Have you ever had or wanted to have any jungle artists out?
We have quite a variety of people playing electronic music that have come through previously. And then, yeah, absolutely. It's the kind of thing where if there's a market for it and if people are interested, I will say with the license restrictions that we can't have DJ-led performances, we can apply for what's called a temporary events notice from the council, which means that if we are on a day where we can't go to 3 a.m., we might be able to extend the running time. We might be able to host events outside on the decking, or we can have DJ-led performances. So whilst we have a limited amount of those that we can apply for a year, so we can't use them all up, if there's a really big drive to have like a big electronic music night, whether that's, whether it's house, whether it's jungle, whether it's drum and bass, dubstep, anything in between, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyone in the podcast room, any questions so far? I've loved your contributions so far, but any further questions?
Offer work experience?
It's not something that we've currently looked into yet. However, what I have also said to people here and elsewhere when we're working with other music colleges is if you've got our contact details and you're interested in coming down, and whether that's shadowing or just chatting about the venue, seeing what kind of equipment we use, maybe shadowing a show and seeing how we're mixing it and stuff like that, then please do get in touch, because it's something that I want to make sure that we're always doing, is keeping that door open for the next generation to kind of like get involved. And hey, even I'm 29 now. I got involved with live music properly at the age of 27. I don't want to like limit this based on like, oh, you've got to be college age to get involved. Like, no, it's if you have a passion for the industry, reach out. As far as work experience stuff goes, that is a little bit more for the management side of things, just because there are certain requirements with risk assessment and supervision that we have to uphold. But hey, if there's interest, get in touch and we'll see what we can do.
So yeah, one-to-one shadowing, kind of maybe easier to organize than like official works. And it's great you've opened up to not just kind of student age people, but a variety. I think that's really nice, because like you said, some people want to take a career change at different point in
well,
life
as you may have gathered, I enjoy talking, and it's quite difficult to shut me up sometimes. You kind of have to like jam like an edge and like a knife that get into the conversation. But one of the things I found, and taking a slight tangent on this, is when I'm mixing, especially when I'm sound checking, I talk through the talkback mic to my performers what I'm doing, and I try and keep them involved at every step of the process. I'm like, right, I'm doing this, I'm doing that with the drums. Okay, we're going to go full kit now. Cool. I'm going to focus on monitors next so you can hear yourselves on stage. Then we're going to get front of house to kind of interface the mic bleed and stuff like that. Because I'm already doing that, it's very easy for somebody who's shadowing to kind of just jump on and just ask the odd question, because again, it's hard to get me to shut up sometimes.
Yeah. So Miles, I know you have interested in music where you're singing, and also Miles has done a lot of comparing and hosting a lot of our Super Jam shows as well.
Fantastic.
And you like hosting podcasts too. Do you think Daltons is sound like a kind of place you might like to get involved in one day?
I would
possibly?
love to.
Yeah,
possibly.
absolutely. Well, all you need to do is grab a contact email, get in touch, and we'll see if there's anything, whether it's shadowing, whether it's looking at organizing events. We'll point you to the right person for either of those, and we'll see if we can get folks involved.
And sometimes I know these guys have done events outside of Super Jam at external venues, so that could be one. So who knows, you could be comparing on the stage there, Miles, one day. That'd be cool. Also, I've a couple last things I want to ask, and whilst I'm asking these guys, we're going to round up soon, but if you have any questions, time to think of them now, and then it gives you a bit of chance to think as well. Have you ever had any, and it could be more funny, I guess, but any like memorable like sort of fail moments where you're like, oh my god, or why did I do that, or how did that happen? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the classic, I didn't mute the board before somebody unplugged something and there was a big bang. That's always a problem. But there have been things. So we're using an active PA system currently.
Yeah.
I've forgotten to turn one side of the speakers on before. That's quite embarrassing. But usually that gets picked up in sound check and isn't an issue in performances. It happens more often than not. And again, I have ADHD, so I bring checklists with me, because if I don't do that, it's a nightmare. But the one really big one, I wasn't working this event. It was the former lead engineer, but this is why we have waterproof extension lead boxes on the stage now, because somebody spilled an entire pint of beer over an extension lead and it tripped the mains fuses in the breaker board. Fortunately, not the full mains fuse, but the plug circuit went down for all those sockets, and that was it's one of those things where you gotta plan for all the eventualities, right? Like, as much as you like to think like, oh, everybody will be respectful, they won't put open containers on top of a vented guitar amplifier or something like that, just cover all your bases. fail-safe thing. I don't want to say idiot-proof because nobody
Yeah.
ever does anything like this deliberately.
It's usually
but-
because they're in the moment, they're going to perform and they're maybe stressed and they don't think. And
You've got a pit going on in a small venue, and somebody just like gets knocked with a pint of beer or something.
Just
I mean,
happens,
I'm never going to be mad at somebody for that. It's just the kind of case of like, what can we do to mitigate the risks of that? So yeah, that was a big one because that was like, oh, house lights go on. Okay, let's get things working. Let's change the extension lead. Hope that everybody's gear is okay, but. Other than that, yeah, no, we've been surprisingly lucky that we haven't had any like really big incidents. Yeah. We do take a strictly zero tolerance approach towards any kind of harassment and bigotry. Yeah. So again, as a queer person working in Brighton, we've got a reputation for it being a very queer friendly venue. We host a lot of Pride events over Pride, which are entirely grassroots and just for the community, separate from corporate pride. We'd host like some drag competitions run by a trans woman in the city, which are wonderful. And we want to make sure we're a really inclusive space. So if anybody comes in and starts spouting hate on stage, fortunately not happened to us. I'd like to think that people are smarter than that in Brighton, but we have, and all of our engineers have full reign to cut them off and kick them out if necessary.
Yeah, brilliant. I totally agree with that as well. And so we're nearing the end of the podcast, and thanks so much for all your time, Suzanna. We're so appreciative, and this has been. I could chat like this all day, literally. Like, but these guys have stuff to get onto after this, and I'm sure you do as well. But we always ask our guests on the Creative Industries podcast if you had a time machine like the Back to the Future car, and you did rewind the clock and go visit your younger self out in the rural countryside. Is there anything you'd want to say? To your younger self, any words of advice or things you picked up on the way, anything like that?
Practice guitar more. Don't leave it just to like 5 minutes or like the day before your lesson. Actually practice your instruments. But no, I think listen to more music, I think, is the single biggest piece of advice that I give to myself. Because yeah, I could say like, oh, here's some tips and advice on mixing, or like, hey, try doing these things differently. I think the single best thing you can do to improve your quality as a mix engineer or an audio engineer or a musician is just have a diverse range of influences. Back when I was in high school, I was real like rock and metalhead. I would have been described as a grebo back then. Not part of the emo crowd, but it was kind of like, oh, Linkin Park and stuff like that. Yeah. Absolutely my jam. Deftones, absolutely my jam. And I was very, I outwardly didn't like a bunch of electronic music until I was introduced to bass music. And also a lot of things like rap and hip hop. I just didn't understand why people liked those. And I think part of that is just because of the influences that I grew up around and the fact that unfortunately Mid Wales is an incredibly racially homogenous area where there weren't a huge amount of diverse cultural influences. And listen to more music, take time to appreciate the qualities that go into them. Don't just listen to the things that you like, but actually actively seek to diversify, whether that's, listening to the radio, listening to other people's curated selections, going to record shops and having a browse and stuff like that. Just be open and listen to anything you can, because you'll always learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely amazing advice. Well,
also wear earplugs.
Yeah, wear earplugs. Yeah, definitely. Especially when live drums are involved.
Oh, 100%.
You can't turn them down. So
those pub gigs back in the day, like I'm very fortunate I didn't end up with permanent hearing damage from those. But if I could go back, that's the other thing. I kick myself in the shins and be like, put these in.
Yeah. So guys in the studio, any last questions before we wrap the podcast up? We got one from Miles coming up, but Lewis is going first.
What is your favorite type of music?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's changed a lot as I've grown up. I'm still an absolute sucker for pop punk. I think that'll always be my favorite. Like, I flew out to America to see Motion City Soundtrack when they had like a not quite reunion, but like a don't call it a comeback tour in 2020. I used to love, and still do love, drum and bass as well. I got really into drum and bass for a long time, and that has a special place in my heart. But
Owen's laughing because he's our big drum and bass head over in Canterbury. He loves his drum and bass.
Where to start? I mean, I obviously love the legends, like obviously Kevin, DJ Hype, Groove Rider, Brocky, Brian G, who you might know runs V Recordings.
I got really involved with, there's a YouTube channel that I got super into back in the day called Liquidity, which they're now a record label as well. They run some festivals, and I sort of like found liquid drum and bass, but moved on to from there more towards sort of like dance floor drum and bass, finding artists like Matrix and Futurebound, for example. And,
Yeah, Sub Focus.
Culture Shock and stuff like in
Nice.
Sub Focus. Yeah, and
Owen's our resident Wikipedia of drum and bass, so we can
And
chat
also-
about this all day, Owen. But I'm just conscious of the time. Maybe we can, maybe one day we can get Suzanna back just for a drum and bass special with
You
you.
know-
I'm just going to go to Miles' question. Then, if you have any
Yes.
other questions, you can go after. But I'll go Miles next. Yeah.
What is your favorite venue of all time?
oh god, that's a
time.
really good
Nice.
question. Let me think about that one.
Because it's a hard question because you got all the ones you grew up with.
Yeah.
All the ones you've seen your favorite bands at. Like you said, you traveled to gigs. Like,
I mean, I feel like Dalton's
Yeah.
is a cop-out answer. So I'll say Dalton's is my favorite, and I'll try and think of like the next one down the line. I mean, the reason I love that place is because it's on the seafront, and in the summer, there's genuinely nowhere I'd rather be. I can
mate, yeah.
take a break, walk out, watch the sunset over the pier on the beach, and then get back to work, and it's absolutely fantastic.
yeah.
Besides that, though, honestly, it's really hard to pick between all the other Brighton venues. I think I have such a soft spot for them because of how entrenched they are in local music, whether that's the Prince Albert, the Hope and Ruin, Green Door Store, even the Rossi Basement. There are so many good spots here that it's so hard to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So great question, Miles. Great question. Great answer as well. Owen, do you have any last questions before we sign off on the podcast today?
I don't know about questions, but I'd like to actually just quickly go back to the ADHD thing.
Yes.
Actually, so I know about ADHD because I used to live with a brother who's got ADHD as well, and he had autism.
And do you have any specific comments or questions on that, Owen, or want to know more about that kind of thing when it comes to making music or being involved in music?
I guess when it comes to music, like how does that affect you in your job?
Very easy to answer. Before I started medication, so I'm currently taking stimulant-based medication, and I unfortunately, because of the long wait times of the NHS, had to spend quite a lot of savings to go and get diagnosed privately. And I'm fortunate enough that my GP took up a shared care agreement with me and has taken over control of that medication. Up until that point, I started a lot of projects and I finished very, very few of them. I think the biggest thing that I've learned from that is that it's better to there's the whole analog of it's better to make 100 pots than it is to try and make one masterpiece, because the amount of practice that you get. I'd much rather, like start a bunch of projects and then just call them finished rather than try and go for perfectionism, because that experience allows me to further hone my skills rather than sitting for months and months trying to make one single track perfect.
Absolutely. And it gets your 10,000 hours in as well, if anyone's heard the 10,000 hours theory. And like I said, with Super Jam, I guess we're celebrating neurodiversity here as well. And kind of, so it's a great to bring it back to that, Owen. And so I appreciate the question. Amazing answer. And I think, although, like I said, I could sit here and chat all day, but I think unless there's any last quick questions for anyone, I think that takes us to our pretty much time in the podcast. Alfie, you got one last question?
Are you ready for the wheels to come to Dalton?
I'm very excited.
Yes.
I am prepared for anything. My stage has experienced everything from beer to buckfast to raw sausages. Bring it on. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, let's
You
go,
guys are
let's
going to
go.
be great. Well, I want to give a round of applause and a massive thank you for Suzanna from Daltons for joining us. And thanks to our team in the studio, Owen on the Zoom call.
Hello.
And we really hope you are listening to this podcast and have enjoyed it. And tune in. We got plenty more. Thanks so much. Catch you later. Bye.
Catch ya.